You're staring at your bank account again. The number hasn't changed. It's the third time you've checked today, maybe the 10th this week. And every time you look, that familiar feeling washes over you. Anxiety. Frustration. The weight of not enough. You close the app, try to focus on something else, but 20 minutes later you're back. Checking again, hoping something shifted. It hasn't. And that number, that situation, that reality you keep observing, it's not just staying the same. It's getting more solid, more real, more permanent. And you don't realize it, but you're doing that. Not with your actions, with your attention. There's something you've been doing your entire life without knowing you were doing it. Something so automatic, so constant, that you never questioned it. You think you're just noticing reality, just observing what's there. The problems, the lack, the things that aren't working, the situation that won't change. You think you're being realistic, facing facts, seeing clearly. But what if I told you that the seeing is what's creating it? That every time you focus on what's wrong, you're not just noticing it, you're making it more real, collapsing it from one of infinite possibilities into the singular reality you're experiencing. And the more you look at it, the more solid it becomes. This sounds impossible. I know, because you've been taught that reality is fixed, that circumstances are facts, that what is. And your job is to notice it, deal with it, figure out how to change it. But there's an experiment that was done over 100 years ago that proved something that should have changed everything about how we understand reality, and most people never heard about it. And the ones who didn't understand what it actually means for their life. Scientists discovered that particles, tiny pieces of matter, don't behave like solid things until someone looks at them. When no one is observing, the particle exists as a wave of possibility. All potential paths at once, everywhere and nowhere. But the moment someone observes it, the moment attention lands on it, the wave collapses. Infinite possibility becomes one definite thing. Attention didn't just notice where the particle was. Attention determined where the particle was. The act of observation created the reality. And you are doing this constantly. Every single moment. With everything you focus on. That bank account you keep checking? You're not just seeing the number, you're collapsing that exact amount into your reality by observing it repeatedly. That relationship that feels stuck? Every time you focus on what's wrong with it, you're selecting that version from all possible versions and making it more solid. That body you criticize in the mirror? You're not noticing a fixed form. You're creating the form you see by where you place your attention. This is why you can't fix your life by focusing on what's broken. Because focusing on what's broken is what's making it broken. You think you're being smart by identifying the problem. But identifying the problem is selecting the problem from the field of all possibilities and collapsing it into your experience. You're using the most powerful creative force you have, your attention, to reinforce exactly what you don't want, and then wondering why it won't change. Most people live their entire lives with their attention locked on what they don't want, what's not working, what's missing, what's wrong, and they think they're just being realistic, just dealing with life as it is. But life as it is life as you're observing it into being. And if you're constantly observing lack, observing problems, observing what's not working, that's what becomes solid. That's what becomes your reality. Not because that's all that exists, but because that's what you're collapsing into existence with your focus. Right now, as you're reading this, infinite versions of your life exist as possibility. The version where money flows easily. The version where the relationship is fulfilling. The version where you feel healthy and alive. All of it exists right now in the quantum field, not as fantasy, as actual potential waiting to collapse into form. And the only thing determining which version becomes your reality is where you place your attention. Consistently, repeatedly, day after day. You've been told that attention is passive, that you notice what's there. But quantum physics proved the opposite. Attention is creative. Attention is selective. Attention collapses reality from infinite possibility into singular experience. And you have been using this power unconsciously, automatically, directing it at whatever grabs you. Usually the worst things, the fears, the problems, the lack. And all of it became more real because you kept looking at it. But if attention creates reality, if observation collapses possibility into form, then you have more power than you ever imagined. Not power to force change, power to select what becomes real by choosing where you look. Not once, not during meditation, constantly, throughout your day. Every moment your attention is somewhere, and wherever it lands, that's what solidifies. You want different circumstances? Stop giving your attention to the current ones, because the current ones are just the echo of where your attention was. And if you keep focusing on them because they're there, you're creating more of them. You're locked in a loop of observation, creating reality, creating more observation, creating more of the same reality. And the only way out is to break the loop, to stop feeding your attention to what you don't want, and to start consciously, deliberately, directing it to what you do. Let me show you exactly how this works, because once you understand the mechanics, once you see what's actually happening every time you focus on something, you'll never be careless with your attention again. In the quantum field, before you observe anything, everything exists as probability, not as maybe real or kind of there, as actual waves of potential. Your bank account exists in the quantum field as every possible amount simultaneously. Your relationship exists as every possible dynamic. Your health, your opportunities, your future, all of it exists right now as waves of probability containing every version. And nothing is more real than anything else until attention touches it. The moment you observe something, the moment your consciousness focuses on one specific version, the wave collapses. All other possibilities fade into background potential and one singular reality crystallizes. This is not metaphor. This is measured, repeatable physics. The particle that was everywhere becomes somewhere. The probability that was everything becomes one thing. And observation is what causes the collapse. Now apply this to your life. You wake up and immediately check your phone, email, messages, bank account. Every single thing you look at, you're collapsing from probability into definite form. But here's what most people don't realize. You're not just passively seeing what's there. You're actively selecting which version of there becomes real. Because before you looked, multiple versions existed. The email could have been good news or bad news or nothing. The bank account could have reflected different amounts. Your body could have felt different ways. All of it existed as possibility. And the version that became real is the version you collapsed through observation. But it goes deeper. It's not just that you observe and something becomes real. It's that repeated observation makes it more permanent. One glance at your bank account collapses a number into form. But that form is still relatively fluid, still close to the probability field. One observation creates temporary form. Repeated observation creates solid form. Obsessive observation creates what feels like unchangeable reality. Think about something you've worried about for years, a health issue, a financial situation, a relationship dynamic. You've looked at it thousands of times, thought about it constantly, checked on it, focused on it, given it your attention day after day after day. And every single time you did, you collapsed that specific version of reality more solidly into form. You weren't just noticing a problem that exists. You were creating the permanence of the problem through sustained observation. You took something that could have been fluid, that could have shifted into different probability, and you locked it into place with your attention. This is why trying to fix problems by focusing on them never works. Because focusing on them is what's making them solid. You identify the problem. That's the first collapse. You analyze the problem. That's repeated observation making it more real. You worry about the problem. That's obsessive attention cementing it into your reality. And then you wonder why the problem won't go away. It won't go away because you keep bringing it back into form by looking at it. The quantum field doesn't care what you want. It doesn't respond to your preferences or your wishes. It responds to your attention. Whatever you observe consistently becomes what you experience consistently. And if you're observing lack, if you're noticing what's missing, if you're focused on what's wrong, that's what the field keeps collapsing into your reality. Not because the universe is punishing you, because you're using your observation to select that version over and over again. And here's the part that makes this both terrifying and liberating. You cannot not observe. You cannot turn your attention off. Every waking moment, you are looking at something, thinking about something, focusing on something. And whatever that something is, you are collapsing it into form. You are making it real. You are selecting it from infinite possibility and bringing it into your experience. The question is never whether you're creating reality through observation. You are, always. The question is whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously. Most people do it unconsciously. Their attention goes to whatever screams loudest. The problem, the fear, the notification, the drama, the lack. And all of it becomes more real because that's where observation landed. They're creating their reality through attention, but they're letting circumstances and conditioning and habit determine where that attention goes. And then they experience the reality those unconscious patterns create and think that's just how life is. But if observation collapses probability into form, if attention is what makes things real, then you have a choice. Not about what exists in the quantum field. Everything exists there. You have a choice about what you collapse into your experience, about which version of reality you select through where you place your focus. And that choice, moment by moment, focus by focus, is what determines the life you live. You are not a passive observer. You are an active creator. And the tool you're creating with is attention. Every time you focus on something, you're saying to the quantum field, this version, make this one real. And the field responds, instantly, without judgment, without questioning whether you actually want what you're focusing on. It just collapses whatever you're observing into form. And if you're observing the wrong things, you're creating the wrong reality. Not because you're broken, because you don't understand what attention actually does. Here's the trap almost everyone falls into. You know what you don't want. You're very clear about it. You don't want to be broke. You don't want the relationship to stay stuck. You don't want to feel anxious. You don't want the health issue. You know exactly what you don't want. And because you know it so clearly, because it's so present in your awareness, you think about it constantly. You focus on it. You observe it. And every time you do, you're collapsing it into form. You're using your attention to make the thing you don't want more real. This is the cruelest irony of how consciousness works. The things you resist, the things you're trying to avoid, the things you desperately don't want in your life, those are often the things you're giving the most attention to. And attention doesn't distinguish between wanted and unwanted. Attention doesn't care if you're focusing on something because you love it or because you hate it. Attention just collapses whatever it touches into reality. So when you obsess over the problem you're trying to solve, when you constantly check the situation you're trying to change, when you fixate on what's wrong, you're not preparing to fix it. You're making it more solid. You're selecting it from the field of infinite possibilities and saying, this one, make this one real, over and over again. And the mechanism is automatic. You wake up and within seconds your attention goes to the thing you're worried about. Did they text? Did the money come through? Did the situation change? You're checking. And checking is observation. And observation is collapse. You're not just seeing if it's still there. You're making it still be there by looking for it. Then throughout the day your mind drifts back to it. Worrying, planning, analyzing, trying to figure out how to fix it. And every single mental drift, every return of focus is another collapse, another reinforcement, another layer of solidity being added to the exact reality you're trying to escape. Most people spend their entire day with their attention locked on what they don't want. They wake up thinking about the problem. They go to sleep thinking about the problem. And every moment in between, whenever their mind isn't occupied with something else, it defaults back to the problem. That's thousands of observations per day. Thousands of collapses. Thousands of moments where they're using the most creative force they have to reinforce the reality they're trying to change. And then they wonder why nothing shifts, why the situation stays the same, why their life feels stuck. It stays the same because you keep observing it as the same. You keep collapsing the same version. And the quantum field has infinite patience. It will keep reflecting back whatever you keep selecting through attention. It doesn't get tired of giving you the same reality. It doesn't decide you've suffered enough and switch to something better. It just responds to observation. And if your observation is consistently on the problem, the lack, the fear, the thing that's not working, that's what keeps appearing. Not because that's all that exists, but because that's all you're selecting. And here's what makes this even harder. The worse something is, the more attention it demands. A crisis screams louder than contentment. A problem grabs focus more aggressively than something working well. So the things you least want in your life are often the things most effective at capturing your attention. And every time they capture it, they become more real. It's a vicious cycle. The unwanted thing grabs your focus. Your focus makes it more solid. The more solid it becomes, the more it grabs your focus. And around you go, using observation to reinforce exactly what you're trying to eliminate. This is why positive thinking alone doesn't work. Because you can spend 5 minutes affirming what you want, and then the rest of the day your attention is on what you don't want. You can visualize the ideal relationship for 10 minutes in the morning, and then spend the entire day thinking about why the current relationship isn't working. You can say you want abundance, but if your attention is constantly on the bills, the debt, the fear of not having enough, that's what you're collapsing into reality, not the affirmation, not the visualization. The thing you're actually looking at, the thing you're actually giving sustained attention to. And sustained is the key word. It's not about where your attention goes occasionally, it's about where your attention lives, where it defaults to when you're not controlling it, where it returns to again and again throughout the day. That's what creates your reality. That's what collapses probability into the form you experience. And for most people, their attention lives in the problem. It defaults to what's wrong. It returns to the fear, the lack, the thing they're trying to escape. And all of that becomes more and more solid because that's where observation keeps landing. You're not creating what you don't want on purpose. You're creating it because you don't understand what attention does. You think focusing on the problem helps you solve it. You think worrying about it keeps you prepared. You think checking on it keeps you informed. But none of that is true. Focusing on the problem makes the problem more real. Worrying about it collapses more versions of it going wrong. Checking on it reinforces its existence. You're not protecting yourself. You're imprisoning yourself. Using the most powerful creative tool you have to build the exact reality you're desperately trying to escape. So how do you stop? How do you break this cycle when the thing you don't want is right there, demanding your attention, screaming to be noticed? How do you shift your focus when the problem is real, when the lack is visible, when the circumstances are undeniable? This is where most people give up. They understand the concept. They agree that attention creates reality, but they can't figure out how to stop looking at what's right in front of them. Here's the truth. You don't stop looking at it by trying not to look at it, because trying not to look at something is still giving it attention. It's still observation. If you wake up and tell yourself, don't think about the bank account, don't check the phone, don't worry about the situation, you're still thinking about it. You're still focusing on it, just through the lens of avoidance instead of engagement. And avoidance is still attention. The quantum field doesn't care if you're looking at something because you want it, or because you're trying to avoid it. It just registers the observation and collapses that reality into form. So the shift isn't about not looking at the unwanted thing. The shift is about looking at something else more consistently. It's about giving your attention to a different version of reality so completely, so repeatedly, that the unwanted version stops getting the observation it needs to stay solid. You're not fighting against the problem. You're starving it of attention while feeding attention to something else. And what you feed grows. What you starve fades back into probability. But here's where people make the mistake. They try to look at the complete opposite. They're broke, so they try to focus on being a millionaire. They're lonely, so they try to imagine being surrounded by people. They feel terrible, so they try to force themselves to feel amazing. And the gap between where they are and what they're trying to focus on is so big that their nervous system rejects it. It doesn't feel real. It feels like lying. And when attention lands on something that doesn't feel real, the collapse is weak, temporary. It doesn't hold. The protocol is simpler. You find the next believable version. Not the fantasy. Not the perfect end result. The version of reality that's close enough to where you are that your body can actually believe it, but different enough that it moves you in the direction you want to go. If you're focused on having $12 in your account, you don't jump to focusing on having 12 million. You focus on having enough for what you need today. That's believable. Your nervous system can accept that. And when you give that version your attention, when you observe that reality consistently, it begins to collapse into form. Then once that becomes solid, once that becomes your new normal, you find the next version, and the next. You're not trying to leap from one end of the spectrum to the other. You're walking up a staircase of probability. Each step is a version of reality that's close enough to believe, but different enough to shift. And you climb by moving your attention from one step to the next. Not forcing, not pretending, just selecting which version you're going to observe into being. Here's the practice. Every time you catch your attention on the unwanted thing, and you will catch it there because it's habit, you don't judge yourself, you don't fight it, you just notice. I'm observing lack right now. I'm collapsing scarcity into form. And then you make a choice. You consciously redirect your attention to the next believable version. The version where this is handled. Where you're okay. Where things are moving in the right direction. You don't need details. You don't need to see the whole picture. You just need a version that feels true enough that your body relaxes into it instead of rejecting it. And you do this over and over. 100 times a day if you need to. Because you're retraining decades of habitual attention. Your mind will drift back to the problem. That's normal. That's expected. The practice isn't perfection. The practice is redirection. Notice where attention went. Choose where attention goes next. Again. And again. And again. Until the new version gets more observation than the old one. Until you're spending more time collapsing the reality you want than reinforcing the reality you don't.
And here's the truth most people never realize. Your attention is not just observing reality. It is shaping it. Every thought you hold, every emotion you entertain, every moment you choose to focus. It's not passive. It's creative. It's directive. It's powerful beyond what you've been taught to believe. Quantum physics didn't just suggest this. It revealed something deeper. Reality responds to the observer. Not sometimes, not partially, but constantly. So the question is no longer, what do you want? The real question is, what are you consistently giving your attention to? If your attention is trapped in fear, doubt, and limitation, your reality will mirror that back to you. But if you begin, right now, to direct your attention with intention toward possibility, clarity, and purpose, something shifts. Not outside first, but within. And when the inner world shifts, the outer world has no choice but to follow. This is your power. Not someday, not after you're ready. Now, so tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself one simple question. Where has my attention been? And is it creating the life I truly want? Because once you become aware of where your attention goes, you become the one who decides where your life goes. And that changes everything.